You shut the... You're gonna put your hands on him? Don't put your hands on me. Put your hands on the captain.
No, come on.
We've all heard stories about entitled cops overstepping their bounds, right?
Get out of the car now!
The driver is a lieutenant in the U.S. Army.
But have you ever actually seen them get put in their place? Well, get ready, because in this video, I'm taking you straight into some jaw-dropping encounters where higher authorities stepped in and humbled those power-tripping officers. 1. Georgia cop pulls over Chief Deputy Sheriff for going 96 miles per hour in a 35 mph zone. A Georgia police officer clocked a Dodge Charger zooming down the road at nearly 100 miles per hour and pulled it over, only to find none other than the county sheriff's chief deputy, Michael Yarbrough, in the driver's seat. And guess what? He wasn't alone. Sitting shotgun was another uniformed deputy. You can bet the officer was all kinds of shocked. He hustled back to his cruiser and got on the phone, letting off some steam about Yarbrough, and he wasn't whispering sweet nothings. Decision made. Yarbrough was slapped with a speeding ticket for tearing up a 35 emph zone at a wild 96 miles per hour. Yarbrough was on duty but had no lights, sirens, or anything. He rang up Henry County Sheriff Reginald Scandrett to spill the beans about his little adventure. Scandrett didn't miss a beat. Yarbrough got benched for 40 hours without a dime to his name for that stunt. 2. After a traffic stop, state senator pushes bill to change tag law. It was May 2017, and there was State Senator Marty Harbin, right? This guy, a Republican who loved stirring the pot with his controversial religious freedom bill, got snagged by the local cops for cruising around with an expired tag. And not just a little expired, we're talking over 30 days past due. The scene heated up when the police corporal told him that policy was policy and that the car had to be towed. But Marty, he was having none of it. He started dropping names, threatening to call the mayor and who knows who else, all while claiming he was Mr. Prompt when it came to bills. Despite his huffing and puffing and a marathon of phone calls, the law had the last laugh, and his ride got impounded. Fast forward a few months, and Marty wasn't just licking his wounds, he was changing the game. Motivated by his own toe-to-toe with the towing policy, he whipped up new legislation, giving drivers with expired tags a chance to zip away with just a warning. The bill sailed through the Senate, and no one was wiser about its personal roots. Marty played it off, as if he were just looking out for the little guy. When the corporal told him changing the law wasn't in their playbook, Marty shot back with a confident, "Well, I can." And did he ever? Pushing his bill all the way to the House of Representatives, Marty showed he wasn't just a bill payer, but a bill slayer. 3. Cop who pepper-sprayed Army lieutenant in traffic stop fired. Officer Joe Gutierrez and his partner, thinking they were in some high-octane action flick, pulled over Nazario. They didn't just stop at asking for license and registration. Nope, they went full blockbuster mode with guns out, handcuffs ready, and pepper spray unleashed. And why? Apparently Nazario's car didn't show its tags. Spoiler alert, the tags were there and clear as day. But let's not gloss over the juicy part. Gutierrez got the boot for not playing by the rules. Yeah, he was fired. His partner, Daniel Crocker, he just got a slap on the wrist with some extra training. Nazario, decked out in his army uniform, wasn't having any of it. Hands out the window, he kept asking, "Why this hassle?" But instead of answers, he got pepper sprayed and a swift kick. Even his dog in the back felt the heat. After all was said and done, Nazario walked free with no charges. But the man wasn't letting it slide. He sued the town of Windsor for this action-packed nightmare that violated his rights. His lawyer, Jonathan Arthur, said Nazario was scared for his life and didn't even dare to move. The Virginia governor stepped up too, calling for a full-on investigation and a chat with Nazario about reform. It's like they say, mess with the wrong guy, and the whole scene blows up. 4. Orlando officer drives off after deputy pulls him over for speeding. On a blazing hot day, June 6, 2023, at about 12:15 p.m., the streets of Seminole County witnessed some real-life action straight out of a movie. Orlando police officer Alexander Shawnee, in full police garb, was zipping down Florida Avenue in his marked Orlando Police Department SUV. This cop was cruising at a wild 80 miles per hour in a 45 miles per hour zone. Talk about breaking the rules. Now, it wasn't just any day for a joyride. As Shawnee darted through traffic, dodging cars like a pro, a Seminole County Sheriff's deputy was hot on his heels, determined to put a stop to this high-speed chase. It took a bit, but the deputy finally got Shawnee to pull over at the corner of State Road 434 and Hammock Lane. The scene was something else. When the deputy approached, Shawnee was all fired up, claiming he was just racing to work. But when asked for his driver's license, he threw a fit, hopped back into his cruiser, and zoomed off. Well, the sheriff's office wasn't having any of that and slapped Shawnee with some serious charges: resisting an officer, reckless driving, and fleeing and eluding a law enforcement officer. Shawnee later turned himself in at the Seminole County Jail and got out on a $9,000 bond. 5. Sheriff refuses to give driver's license when pulled over. Carter County Sheriff Chris Bryant found himself in a bit of hot water in Wilson, right on the corner of Hewitt Street and 10th. Allegedly, he was zipping past the speed limit. When a cop pulled him over, things got a tad spicy. "I'm the sheriff," Bryant declared, not about to hand over his driver's license easily. The officer, cool as a cucumber, told him to stay put and headed back to his squad car. But Bryant? He wasn't having any of that waiting game. He stepped out, strode up to the officer, and threw down the million-dollar question, "You writing me up, or what?" The officer was just checking the license, planning to let the big man go on his merry way. Not one to miss a beat, Bryant flashed his license and a shiny badge to boot. Later, Bryant sang a different tune, issuing a big old "my bad." He admitted that maybe speeding and playing hardball with his license weren't top-notch ideas. He even trotted back to the Wilson PD an hour later to shake hands and make nice with the officer, the city mayor, and the police chief too. The officer who stopped him got kudos from the chief for keeping his cool the whole time. And guess what? No ticket for the sheriff. Looks like Bryant learned the hard way that even the sheriff couldn't dodge every bullet. 6. The Zebulon police chief pulled over in Molina. Zebulon Police Chief Jonathan Hemphill really stirred up a storm in Pike County. On a hot August day, Hemphill got pulled over by the Molina PD for cruising around with dark window tint and sporting an unregistered ghost tag. When the body cam rolled, it caught Hemphill hopping out of his ride and strutting up to the officers. He wasted no time pulling rank, dropping his title like a hot potato and even bringing up old times with their boss. But here's the kicker. Hemphill wasn't just chatting, he was laying it on thick, challenging the stop and tossing around words you wouldn't want your grandma to hear. A criminal justice guru didn't hold back either, slamming Hemphill's antics as a classic case of unprofessional machismo. That's right, big guy energy, but not in a good way, especially towards a female officer, which screamed trouble in capital letters. Molina's top cop, Chief Matt Polk, had nothing but praise for his squad. Despite Hemphill's heavyweight badge antics, they kept it cool, proving the law doesn't play favorites. Post-scuffle, Molina wasn't taking chances, linking up with the Pike County Sheriff's Office for all those urgent 911 calls. Meanwhile, Hemphill and his office were like ghosts, nowhere to be heard from. Goes to show that sometimes the big badge can weigh you down more than you think. 7. Port Authority Commissioner confronts police during NJ traffic stop. This Port Authority bigwig sure knew how to stir up a storm. And boy did she deliver. When a couple of New Jersey cops pulled over a car for having a shady license plate and tinted windows back on March 31st, they didn't know they were in for a show. Enter Karen Turner, a hotshot commissioner at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, rushing to the scene like a Hollywood star after her daughter, who was just a passenger, gave her a ring. Appointed only the year before, Turner wasn't about to let anyone forget who she was. She marched up to those officers, badge in hand, like she owned the place, telling them she oversaw a whopping 4,000 officers. Talk about dropping names. The officers weren't having any of it, though. They laid it out straight. Her daughter wasn't the driver, wasn't ticketed, so really, Turner was out of the game here. But Turner, she claimed, She was very involved and pushed those officers to spill the beans on why they stopped the car. Her temper flared as she threatened to tattle to the Tenafly police commissioner about their little roadside drama, accusing the cops of ruining Easter weekend for everyone in the car. She didn't stop there. She called the officers a disappointment and even threw in some choice words, but the curtain fell on her act when she had to resign from her big-time role before the video of her performance hit the spotlight. The Port Authority did a bit of digging, and guess what? They didn't like the show one bit. Turner's headline act led straight to her exit stage left. 8. NJ Cop slams his own police chief onto Carhood. After he showed up drunk at a crash scene, Bradley Beach just turned into the Wild West, thanks to Police Chief Leonard Guida. It was one November 9th, and trouble was brewing at a crash scene on Main Street. Enrolled Guida, but he wasn't just there to help. Nope, he had brought a little extra spirits with him, if you catch my drift. So, there was Sergeant William Major, minding his business, looking sharp at a suspected drunk driving incident, and along came Guida, buzzing and all. He started hassling Major about his jacket of all things. Major wasn't having any of it, stripped off the jacket, and headed back to the scene. But Guida, he wasn't done yet. He grabbed Major's arm, but our boy Major wasn't about to take that sitting down. A quick shove sent Guida sprawling onto a police cruiser hood. "Back off or you're getting cuffed," Major warned. Guida tried to flip the script and get Major arrested, but Major stood his ground like a boss, with the body cam footage as his trusty sidekick. In a twist, Guida pulled rank and suspended Major right there. But the standoff kept heating up until Major marched back to the station to cool down. Fast forward, and Major was back on duty. But Guida, he was chilling on administrative leave from his cozy $174,000 a year gig, wondering where it all went wrong. Mayor Larry Fox was in the mix now, confirming the suspension and waiting on what the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office had to say. Meanwhile, Guida was keeping mum. 9. Tennessee police officer fired after pulling over Sen John Lundbergs' daughter. This Bristol, Tennessee cop was shown the door after he popped off about department policies during a traffic stop with a senator's daughter. On camera, no less. Officer Phil Kiesnowski wasn't just handing out a ticket for some fancy window tint to Sam Lundberg. He took it up a notch, venting his gripes about how the department ran its show. He even suggested she chat with her daddy, Sen John Lundberg, to get some of those pressures off their backs. But here's where it got spicy. Kiesnowski tried to go incognito by muting his mic. Bad move, Phil. That stunt, alongside his off-the-cuff remarks, got him the boot. The department wasn't having any of it, pointing out his slick move to kill the audio, which was crucial for the official record, and his less-than-proper suggestions. And guess what? Senator Lundberg, stepping up for his daughter's ticketing officer, got a lawyer on board for Kiesnowski, aiming to snag back his badge. He was shaking his head, unable to believe this whole mic muting and mouthing off cost Kiesnowski his gig. 10. Police pull over Florida State Attorney. What a day it was for Florida's first black state attorney, Aramis Ayala. On June 19, 2017, she found herself in the hot seat, but not in the courtroom. Nope, this was on the streets of Orlando. Ayala was just cruising along when, bam, blue lights appeared in her rearview mirror. 2 Orlando police officers decided it was her lucky day to get pulled over. So there she was, handing over her ID, playing it cool and collected, wondering what was up. She had done nothing wrong, right? She asked the officers straight up, why the stop? They came back with, "Oh, we ran your plates and guess what? No info came back." Sounds fishy, huh? Ayala, not missing a beat, dug deeper. "Why are you running my tags?" she asked. The officers, probably wishing they had picked a quieter car to stop, explained it was all routine, checking for stolen cars and all that jazz. Oh, and yeah, the dark window tint caught their eye too. Ayala, not one to be shaken, simply nodded and requested the officers' contact info. They handed it over and wished her a good day, probably relieved to put this stop behind them. Later, the Orlando Police Department spun a tale about her tags not matching any registered vehicle and the tint being too dark to see who was behind the wheel. Ayala had her tags in order, her tint legal, and no plans to file a complaint. But don't think she let this slide. She was all about respect and building bridges with law enforcement. After receiving a death threat in her mailbox for her bold stance on skipping the death penalty in her cases, let's just say she had enough of being the target. Here was a woman who wouldn't be intimidated, standing tall and looking to chat it out with the Orlando police chief. 11. Police lie to Uber driver attorney. North Carolina lawyer and part-time Uber driver Alex Bright got more than he bargained for after a routine pickup near a sketchy spot on February 26, 2017. Just as he was cruising with his passenger, whoa! Blue lights appeared in the mirror. Cops pulled him over, suspecting something fishy because of where he had just come from. Then, the officers ordered Bright to kill the video he was recording. Bright was like, "No way, Jose!" He stood his ground, citing his right to keep the camera rolling for his own safety. Talk about guts. The officers weren't having it, though. They threw around threats of jail time and even called in a K9 unit to sniff around his ride. Bright, cool as a cucumber, whipped out his bar card, showing he wasn't just any Uber driver, he was a lawyer, folks. Guess what? The search turned up zilch. No contraband, nada. Bright didn't let it slide. He went public, posting the video online and sharing a press release from the New Hanover County Sheriff's Office. The sheriff backed him up, confirming it was totally legal to record the cops. He even said the officer who messed up got a talking to. While Bright's passenger ended up in cuffs, Bright himself walked away free as a bird. That's how you stand your ground and show 'em who's boss. 12. Body cam shows Muskogee Tribal Police, Okmulgee County jail dispute over non-native man's arrest. In a scene straight out of an Okmulgee County showdown, tribal prosecutors threw the book at jailer Matthew Douglas. Douglas thought he could push around Muskogee Nation Lighthorse Police Deputy Chief Dennis Northcross over who got to throw whom in jail. Douglas had said, "We don't take folks arrested by Lighthorse Police," which sparked a clash, caught on body cam. There was Douglas shoving Northcross like he owned the place. Despite Douglas playing gatekeeper at first, the suspect got booked anyway, ticking all the boxes, according to Okmulgee County Sheriff Eddie Rice. And boy, did this scuffle highlight the heat between tribal and federal law dogs, especially after the feds said tribes could go after non-natives for roughing up native officers. Sheriff Rice quickly pointed out that no deputies got cuffed and that he chatted up legal eagles about the warrant when tribal officers were stopped from serving it. Muskogee Nation didn't hold back, slamming Okmulgee County for snubbing federal law that lets tribal police do their thing and for the rough treatment. And then came Governor Kevin Stitt, linking this tussle to the 2020 McGirt Supreme Court decision mess and rolling out a task force to untangle these legal knots, packed with cops, lawmakers, and tribal voices. 13. Secret standoff sparks scuffle between Cleveland County deputies and Lexington police. Sheriff Chris Amerson and his crew were in for a real showdown, not just with a former cop turned bad guy, but also their own kind. D'Angelo Reyes, this ex-Tulsa officer who was now on the radar for some serious rape charges, was holed up and ready for a standoff. Sensing trouble with Reyes packing more heat than a summer BBQ, the bondsman called for backup. But guess what? Local Lexington cops gave it a hard pass. As if that wasn't spicy enough, Sheriff Amerson got snagged for speeding on his way to the scene by a Lexington officer clueless about the brewing storm. Amerson was like, "Man, I'm racing to a SWAT gig." But the officer wasn't having any of it. Fast forward to the staging ground, and you can cut the tension with a knife. Enter Lexington Police Chief Ronnie Johnson, steaming mad about being the last to know. What followed was a no-holds-barred verbal brawl, with Johnson, Amerson, and their deputies slinging mud over who was boss of this chaos. The air was thick with accusations and jurisdiction jabs, a perfect storm of miscommunication and procedural beef. Later, the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office dropped this line: "Ongoing investigation, 14. Cop racially profiles lawyer, regrets it immediately." Emmanuel Olawale, a civil rights lawyer from Westerville, found himself in a real pickle when he was just tossing out the trash on a hot July day in 2021. There he was, minding his own business, when two cops showed up, snooping around for any signs of illegal dumping. The scene caught on the body cam made it clear these officers weren't just passing by. They were on a mission. Olawale, keeping it cool, flashed his business card and ID to clear the air. But no, sir, he wasn't having it when one officer tried to jot down his info. "Hold up, what about my rights?" He clapped back. The police tried to smooth talk, saying they were just dotting their I's and crossing their T's, documenting the meetup. The chief of police, Charles Chandler, also called in, praising the encounter as all polite and professional, just a routine procedure to gather information for their records. But Olawale wasn't buying what they were selling. He didn't rush to file a complaint, but he sure didn't shy away from blasting the ordeal over social media, hinting that maybe, just maybe, this was a case of racial profiling. He laid it out plain and simple. When a cop holds your ID, you're basically stuck. Make a move to leave, and you could be in a world of trouble. While the Westerville police dug deeper with an internal review, and those officers were still out there, Olawale pushed for the force to up their game with better training on diversity and handling people without causing a stir. 15. Georgia sheriff and sergeant threatened to arrest each other. You won't believe what went down in Georgia. A sheriff and a sergeant totally got into it, throwing down threats of arrest at each other right in the middle of a traffic stop. Sheriff Ken Henderson from Towns County barged into a routine traffic stop by Sergeant Tracy James of the Hiawassee Police Department. The drama unfolded as soon as Sergeant James handed over a ticket to the driver. Playing the detective, Sheriff Henderson quizzed the driver about where the supposed offense happened. Boom! The driver spilled the beans, confirming the sheriff's suspicions. What came next? Sergeant James, not holding anything back, threatened to slap the cuffs on Sheriff Henderson right there on the spot. Yikes! As tensions hit the roof, the air filled with some choice words. You can bet they weren't discussing the weather. Eventually, they each stormed off in their own directions, leaving bystanders in total disbelief. County Attorney Rob Kiker stepped in, revealing a bigger drama brewing behind the scenes. It turned out the Towns County Sheriff's Office and Hiawassee Police had been butting heads over cops chasing suspects out of their turf. Who knew traffic stops could get this wild? 16. Florida Police Sergeant grabbing female officer by the throat. Christopher Police, a 47-year-old Florida police sergeant, found himself in hot water, and not just for splashing around. Charged with battery and assault on a fellow law enforcement officer, this sergeant wasn't playing by the rules. Bodycam footage caught the whole showdown. Police grabbed a female officer by the throat during a heated moment. And guess what? There was more to this drama. Evidence tampering and assaulting a civilian were also on the list. But Police didn't stop there. He took his defiance to the next level. After being stripped of his supervisory role in January, he was spotted holding pepper spray like it was his personal ticket to power, right in a fellow officer's face and in a civilian's during an arrest. Talk about a spicy situation. The plot thickened with the sergeant trying to tamper with his cell phone, aiming to twist the narrative for a criminal trial. Though blurred to shield the ongoing internal probe, the video spilled the beans with Police, talking to a cuffed suspect in a patrol car. As the female officer stepped in to defuse the ticking time bomb, Police turned the heat up, shoving her against another patrol car. Sunrise Police Chief Anthony Rosa didn't mince words, blasting Police for ramping up the tension while praising the brave female officer who stuck to the playbook. With Police cooling his heels on administrative leave, his next uniform might just be a prison jumpsuit, as he faced a heap of time behind bars if convicted. Let this be a lesson. Mess with the wrong person, and it's game over. 17. Cop fired after stopping black shoppers for being suspicious. This off-duty deputy constable from Indiana thought he was the boss of the block, demanding IDs from two African-American men right outside an Indianapolis shopping spot. And boy, did he get it all on camera. Aaron Blackwell wasn't having any of it and decided to film the whole circus on November 12th. That video, straight to YouTube it went. Here's where it got juicy. Our deputy, moonlighting as a store security guard, got all up in their grill after some chit-chat, acting like he owned the place, saying he could do whatever he wanted because, you know, he's a cop. But hold up. The very next day, the Lawrence Township Constable, Terry Burns, heard about this mess and, bam, fired the deputy quicker than you could say misconduct. And Nordstrom Rack? They were like, not in our house, making it clear this guy was off the roster for good. Now, everyone was talking about how this smelled like racial profiling and some serious abuse of power. Even the Indianapolis cops had to step in, letting the guys go because, surprise, there was no legitimate reason for the stop in the first place. 18. Congressional candidate Martin Hyde threatens cop's career during traffic stop. Martin Hyde, the Republican contender in Florida's 16th district, got himself into a hot mess on Valentine's Day when he thought he could boss around Officer Julie Beskin during a traffic stop in Sarasota. The man wasn't just speeding, he was texting too. But when he got pulled over, instead of playing it cool, Hyde went all in, dropping threats and even a "Do you know who I am?" on Officer Beskin. As Beskin asked for the usual license and registration, Hyde shot back with hints that she was making a career-limiting move. Talk about drama. He played hard to get with his registration, throwing in a not-so-subtle hint that Beskin might just be out of a job soon. But wait, there was more. Even after handing over his license, Hyde didn't quit. He kept the heat on, arguing away. When Beskin came back with tickets for speeding, texting, and the registration fiasco, Hyde was all, "I'm going to talk to your boss," and even tossed in a jab about her immigration status. Yeah, he went there. Then, as if that wasn't enough, he flashed his congressional candidate badge. A supervisor had to step in, but Hyde hinted that Beskin's days in blue might be numbered. Oh, and just for kicks, Hyde was backed by big names like Roger Stone and Michael Flynn, and he was all about fighting cancel culture. 19. Traffic stop video of Arizona DPS director being pulled over. The big boss of Arizona's highway squad, Colonel Frank Milstead, was tearing up the asphalt, clocking over 90 miles per hour. The guy in charge of keeping the roads safe was pushing the pedal a bit too hard this time. There he was, weaving through traffic like it was some kind of action movie. And guess what? No blinkers either. Just when he thought it was all smooth, sailing to Flagstaff for a heartfelt memorial hike, the lights and sirens came on. Deputy Cody Winton of the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office wasn't just any cop. He was about to pull over the top dog himself. The scene was straight out of a cop drama, body cam rolling and all. Milstead was riding with his fiancée, Angela Harrell, who was gearing up to honor her late husband, a hero officer who died in duty. When Milstead flashed his DPS badge, you'd think it was game over, right? But no, Deputy Winton kept it real and professional, handing out just a warning this time. Milstead, caught in the fast lane, admitted he had messed up. He said it was routine to show the badge, but it was a wake-up call this time. The sheriff's office even chimed in, saying, "Hey, warnings are pretty standard, no special treatment here." 20. Rohnert Park police officer who pulled gun out on man. This guy, Don McComas, was just minding his own business, hooking up his boat in his driveway, right? But then, bam! Out of nowhere, a cop, Officer David Rodriguez, rolled up and pulled his gun. Why, you ask? Because Don was apparently looking all agitated and had this suspicious bulge in his pocket. The city's bigwigs did a deep dive, so guess what? They backed the cop, saying he was just playing by the rules, all because Don was acting all sketchy and hiding behind his truck. But no backup call was recorded and 0 complaints about parking on that day. Smells fishy, huh? Don wasn't taking it lying down. He slapped the city with a civil rights claim, accusing the officer of harassment and even making up stuff in his report. The whole showdown got caught on Don's cell phone and blew up on Facebook. In the end, Don wasn't arrested, and his wildest crime was speeding up in the past. But he was so ticked off, he didn't even chat with the folks investigating. Meanwhile, Officer Rodriguez, he moved on to the fire division, but they said it wasn't because of this mess. Honestly, I believe it was high time these entitled cops were put in their place. Exercising power is one thing, but abusing it and undermining those they should be serving is entirely unacceptable. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, remember to hit that subscribe button below. Your support means the world to me. See you in the next one.